Hi everyone, this is Lori of Lori's Happy Stamps, and today we're going to talk about alternatives to Daisy Daydream March 2025 Paper Pumpkin. I love this set. Not only do we have a cute set of stamps, but we got a bonus stamp set because it is March, which we typically get a second stamp set in March. But what I love about this one is it coordinates with this stamp set. For the last few years, the second stamp set really didn't coordinate with the theme, but this one does, so yay. So I'm going to share with you the 3 cards and let you know how I changed them just a very little bit, and then I'm going to show you 5 alternatives. And there are 3 little extras that I really recommend that you have for this kit. It's a jelly roll pen and Wink of Stella, which I love. And then we used to have this thing called Crystal Effects at Stampin' Up! That they no longer have, but this Ranger Glossy Accents is the bomb. And I'm going to show you how to use it 2 different ways. So, like I said, you can get them all on Amazon. You can get Wink of Stella still through Stampin' Up! As well. So let's look at the 3 cards real quickly. The first card, I didn't really change anything. I followed exactly what it suggested, but I did use that alternate stamp and then the stamp set with the kit. And I used, what color is this? Crushed Curry. So I thought it really finished off the inside of the card. For the second card, which is the blue card, let's see, this card, I really didn't do anything different with that card, but again, on the inside, I added the honeycomb, the open honeycomb with Lost Lagoon, and then I stamped the bee. And the bee wings I stamped in, what color was that? Not crumb cake. Hold on just a second. That one was too dark. I used basic beige. So basic beige for the wings. Okay. All right. So that is card number 2 right here. And then the third card, I just could not help myself. It has a really pretty honeycomb on the back, so I could not cut it off and use it. So I cut my card base in half, and I just glued it onto a piece of Very Vanilla at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and I followed the directions with the front just the way it suggested. However, it says to glue this piece on before you glue these pieces on. No, don't do that, because when I did that, then my daisies were over the words, so I had to cut a petal out there and cut a petal out there so that you could see my sweet birthday wishes. So I suggest putting your daisies on first and then going back and gluing this piece in. Then on the inside, I did that same crushed curry honeycomb with that honeybee. I just think that is such a cool look. So that is how I did the 3 cards. So now let me tell you about the optional cards, my alternatives. So my first alternative card looks like this. And my envelope is a Very Vanilla envelope, and I stamped it with the crushed curry and the bee. On the inside, I used the crushed curry, honeycomb, and the bee. This is a bookbinding card. So it's a regular card. It's 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. And then it's also scored at 4 1/4. So it folds back like this, only on the front. So after you fold it, then score, actually, if you score it 1 1/4 inches from the fold line, then you get the nice book binding piece. And so then you need 2 pieces of Very Vanilla, and this one is 1 inch by 4 inches, 1 by 4, and this one is a 4 by 4 inch square. And I stamped on the let's see, did I do? Yeah, I stamped it on. And then what I did is, can you see the shiny pieces? The shiny little bits right here? I used the glossy accents, and I just put it on the honeycomb pieces at random spots, because if you look at the pieces in the kit, some of the pieces are shiny on the honeycomb. And so I made those shiny here as well, and I know you can see those because I can see them. And then I made my own little bee, I call them trinkets. And the way I did that is I took a piece of basic beige, but you could use white or Very Vanilla, and I stamped my bees, and then I used the wild wheat for the bodies. And then I used a white gel pen just for that little piece of white on its bottom. And then I just fussy cut around them, and I didn't get too crazy. And then I bumped them up on dimensionals. So I did 3 of those. So what you do is you are going to take your card base and you're going to fold it back. You're going to put glue right down here. And then you're going to take a piece of ribbon that I would say is about 24 inches. And I'm just going to lay it across the bookbinding part like that. And then I'm going to close it up and hold it for a moment, and then that will be closed. And then you can tie your ribbon on it, and I just used a thicker ribbon here with a bow knot, but this one will be a real bow. And then I just stamped my pieces and glued them onto the card base. And I did the same thing with the inside. And you know what? I totally lied. I did not stamp these. These were the back side of this this card. So I did a 4 by 1 and a 4 by 4, and I used those as the front. And then I did, because I wanted some of the honeycomb to shine like it had honey on it, I just went ahead and I added the extra little bits on there. And then on the inside, I stamped my honeycomb and my bee and glued it on the inside. So that is how you make the first alternative like this. What do you think? I really like it. But I love the bees. I think it is such a cute theme that I went a little bit crazy with this whole set and ideas for this set. So the second card. And let me just put a pin on this so I don't lose everything again. Okay, so for the second card, it's a Z-fold card, and I took the front of the card base that had all the daisies on it, and I cut it down so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It takes the whole page, and I am using a piece of Very Vanilla cardstock, and it is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4, and also 2 1/8, and you just fold it as a Z-fold card. Then for this card, I am simply scoring it at 2 1/8. So I have exactly the same size on this, on the left side as the right side. Glue the right side over here on the inside of the base. And on the outside of the front, you're going to glue this to the left. So you get them like this. Then I glued a little daisy here with a dimensional, and I used a piece of what color is this? Maybe smoky slate. I think it's smoky slate. And I stamped You Make Me Smile, and it's from another stamp set right now that is with those dies, and it is called it's called Around It All, You Make Me Smile, and then it's got these cool die cuts, and I used the third 1 2 3 4, nope, bigger, the 5, yes, the 5th circle from the middle, and I cut it out. I used the Mossy Meadow for the sentiment. You could use any of the sentiments from the kit. I just thought this one worked well here. And then I glued a larger daisy onto the side, so you'll see that you're going to stamp more to the right. So then I glued this on here, and then I bumped it up on dimensionals like that. Okay, and did not do anything so it wouldn't stick to the back. And then I gave my team who stamp with me some white sticky back sequins, and you can put those on the front of your card and also add a bow. So that is a Z-fold and card number 2 of your alternatives. And put these all back so I am ready to go. Oh, on the envelope, I stamped, I took a Very Vanilla envelope, and I stamped one of the stamps from the kit, and 1 on the front, and then 3 on the back. And I used the white gel pen to color in the petals of the daisies, and crushed curry for the center of the daisies, and then Mossy Meadow for the leaves. And I was not heavy-handed with that. I was real light and actually left some little open spots, and I just think it makes it look lighter and more realistic than making it all a solid color. So that is card number 2. And now for card number 3, we are making a honeycomb. And again, I made more homemade charms, and this time I used white, basic white cardstock, and just stamped on them. And then I used packing tape over them to make them shiny. So all you do is take, after you stamp on them and you've colored them, then I just take my clear packing tape and lay it right over, and that's the way I do that. So very simple way to get some shine on your trinkets. All right, so this is the card. And so it is a gatefold card, and you will see that it has a 3D hive texture on it. So for my ladies that stamp with me, I sent you some bits, and enclosed is a pre-embossed piece of Daffodil Delight. And this is an old 3D hive embossing folder you may have in your old stash. I think it's 2 or 3 years old, so take a look. You may have it. I checked in the store and it's not available any longer in Stampin' Up. But here again, you'll see that I have some dots that are shiny, and these for sure I did stamp on here. This is the inside of that piece that you have, the negative piece, when you have your circle piece. So keep that. And I stamped on it. There's a little bit of the image that was left from Stampin' Up, but that didn't bother me, and I just stamped over it. And then I used my glossy accents again and did just 5 of these so they would shine. And then I added 5 of my bee trinkets that I made, and they are bumped up on dimensionals. Then on the inside, I just used a piece of basic white that is 4 by 5 1/4, and I used a little bit of that back side of that card base that was left over, and I glued it there. And then I added my own bee. I glued a bee, or I stamped a bee right there, and then used one of the card envelopes from the kit. So that is alternative number 3. Oh, to make the card base, a gatefold card, you still need 8.5 by 5.5, 8.5 by 5.5, and then you score it at 2 1/8 and 2 1/8, and then fold in. So that's the way you get that card base, and that's a fun one to do. Then for card number 4, I have a little bit more of a traditional card, but I loved the daisy. And darn, if I haven't, I forgot to tell you, every time I used a daisy in this kit, including the originals, I don't know if you can really see here, there's some little shine right there. I used Wink of Stella on every one of my daisies. And I used it where a little bit of the gray is and where the pollen part is. And I just think that really makes all the daisies look cute in this card set. So for this card set, I am using the paper from Everyday Happiness, and I used a regular card base that is basic gray, or no, pebbled path, that is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and then I cut another piece of pebbled path here that I bumped up on dimensionals, and that is 4 by 5 1/4. And then my piece of designer series paper is 5 by 3 3/4. And then these are 2 new dies that just came out, and they are called Textured Notes. So I used this one and this one, and I think they're beautiful. Don't you love all of those textures? So Textured Notes, I highly recommend it. And it is in the online store, I believe, right now. So then I stamped Thank You for Always Being There for Me from the stamp set. I added one of the daisies glued flat onto the white, and then this is bumped up on dimensional. So the layer of basic or pebbled path on pebbled path is bumped up on dimensionals, and this piece of Lost Lagoon is bumped up on dimensionals. And then for the inside, it's just a 4 by 5 1/4, and then a piece of extra designer series paper here. For the envelope, I took just a plain white envelope that I had some Lost Lagoon designer series paper, so I glued that there, and then I stamped this image from the stamp set, and it has the daisy and the leaves, and I used Lost Lagoon for the leaves. I used Daffodil Delight for the pollen, and then I used a little bit of Winkostella on that, and I also used a little bit of Winkostella on the leaves, or on the petals. So that is how you do card number 4. And then the last card I did looks like this. And so I just used this piece from the kit, and I used this piece and this piece from the kit, and the bee, of course. I used a piece of crushed curry that is 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. I used a white piece that is 4 by 5 1/4. I stamped on it the honeycomb and the bee, glued it on, and then for the outside, I did the stamping of the, you can see here, I stamped onto my cardstock, and then I used some of the glossy accents, but instead of letting it waiting 15 minutes for it to dry, I used my embosser on the low, and it bubbled up and made this really cool, like 3-dimensional kind of thing. So it really looks like honey. So then what I did is bump this on dimensionals over the top of it, glued the daisies down flat. This is on dimensionals. My bee is on dimensionals. I have some new bling called neutral matte dots, and so I used 3 of those black ones to kind of bring in the black of the bee. And then on my envelope, I stamped off with crushed curry, and I did my bee, but I added some of the glossy accents again, and again I kind of blew them up with my embossing, my heat tool. So if you use it on a level 1 and it's not dry yet, it will kind of fizzle up and bubble, and then it like collapses and makes this 3D effect. So I hope you like our alternatives this month, and we are going to meet on Friday, April 4th on Zoom at 10 a.m. Pacific time. If you have any questions, give me a call or text, email. Enjoy. Have fun with this kit. I sure did.